Okay, welcome everybody. Today is April the 29th, 2021. Wisdom Keys with myself, Brother Francis, for Resonant Essentials, the group. And of course, one of the things for today's topic is let silence be your friend. Yep, let silence be your friend. Now, the reason I kind of chose that topic is simply because the mind, the kind of mind that we have, often is overflowing with a lot of words, bits of data, so many bits of data that it can be quite overwhelming. And we find ourselves chit chatting away in the brain. And when we're chit chatting away in the brain, it can be quite much, if I could say it that way, only because we find ourselves often moving a little too late or a little too forward in situations. And sometimes we find those situations to be quite hard to deal with. And when they become quite hard to deal with, it means that we're not allowing for ourselves to experience, to be in a moment where we can feel more peace, more harmony with ourselves. So, one of the many things that we have to learn how to do is we have to learn how to allow ourselves to come into an awareness of things. And in the process of coming into an awareness of things, we can allow ourselves a deeper relationship with our own divinity, our own presence within ourselves. And this is essential to our well being. After all, we are striving to be in a state of oneness with ourselves, oneness with all. People might say the oneness of creation. And we want to find ourselves there. We want to feel ourselves there. And we want to feel connected. And so, in that process of going forth and feeling connected, we can allow ourselves to experience that opportunity. This is something that we all need. We all need to learn how to allow ourselves an opportunity where we can move into a greater sense of awareness. When we move into a greater sense of awareness, we are allowing ourselves the golden opportunity to be at one with our higher self, which is a reflection of the divine, infinite source of all. So that makes us infinite inside ourselves. And I'm going to use two books today. I'm going to quote from two books because it is essential that we can realize the possibility of everything, of how we can feel a sense of oneness with ourselves and oneness with all, because that's important. How can we connect with others if we're unable to connect with ourselves? So, this is an essential teaching today. Let silence be your friend. Another way to kind of experience silence or an example of silence is many times we don't like to sit by ourselves. We don't like to feel disconnected. You're not really disconnected because when you sit in silence, and I'm talking about meditation, you learn how to connect. And this is essential. And we have to be available. When we are truly available, then the heart is magnified. The impulses that we give out to the world around us is radiating energy, radiating light. And all of us are radiating light, but we want to radiate good thoughts, good feelings, good vibrations. And this is essential to our well-being. And if we could do this more often, we are able to not just simulate a sense of peace, harmony, and happiness, but in reality, become the peace, harmony, and happiness that we're seeking. We have to become it. The late Reverend Ike used to say in his teachings, you got to have the consciousness for something that you're trying to bring into your life. So if you want to be a millionaire, you have to have the consciousness has to be there. The seed has to already be planting and germinating constantly in order to get comfortable with the concept, with the perceptions of that idea that you are a millionaire. If you're saying that you are an artist, it's the same thing. You have to have a level of consciousness. Dr. Michael Beckwith, I'm just going to paraphrase him. He says, we have eyes to see because we have the consciousness to see. We have the ears to hear because we possess the consciousness. The consciousness inside can hear. The consciousness inside can see outward, can see through you. Can see also means to understand. It could also take over the body because you become the host for it. And what happens is the consciousness can touch things physically and metaphysically. It could see things. It could smell. So your consciousness is at a level where you can attain those things in this moment at any time. But you also have to, I'm just putting this out again, you also have to learn how to quiet the ego, that part of ourselves that's chattering, that part of ourselves that makes ourselves feel uncomfortable. We can't sit in meditation because we feel like we got to do something else. The mind is racing. And this is often happening all the time because we think way too much. Let me say that again. We think way too much. Society and family has taught us to think. You go to school to learn how to look at formulas and equations, right? And words and phrases and be able to piece those together. That's why you like doing crossword puzzles, crypto puzzles, right? Where you get like just a blank thing and you got to figure out what the quotation is. And if you do those things, eventually you can figure them out faster and faster, or you can get most of it, right? So it is the same when we go into meditation, or even just not even into meditation, but to be able to contemplate on something. You have to be able to get quiet enough so you become what? Focused on one thing. In the spiritual side of the Bible is to have the single eye. You want to get to the point where there's just one eye, not two eyes in motion, with the third eye, just one eye, seeing everything, hearing everything, sensing everything. And so in that process, we can allow ourselves to be that, allow ourselves to receive that, allow ourselves to know that, and allow ourselves to be that. That's what we're striving. We're seeking that. So I want to pull a quotation. Maybe I'll find it in Ike's book later. But in my library, I was looking for the book for a whole week and I found it. And you should get this book. It's called Silence, and the author is Robert Sardello. And he takes you through a series of exercises that opens you to the doors of silence. But even before, without saying that, I just want to pull a phrase. He says, sometimes in your moment of being sitting for it, he said, the very qualities of silence have been enumerated to that we may gradually come to experience the complex nature of silence. So he's telling you right away, it's not easy to get to it. You're going to have to sit. You're going to have to apply yourself. You're going to have patience. You're going to have to be the observer or the witness of thoughts flowing through your mind, but not grasping onto them, not trying to hold on to thoughts, not even to the feelings. This is why sometimes your ego mind can cause you to be antsy. You can't sit. All of a sudden, you're doing something like uh, clearing your throat, or your eyes are itching, or you feel like you got to blow your nose. Because the ego side of the mind is going to bring up all the excuses why it doesn't want you to be seated in a meditation, let alone get into the silent side of it. So he says in here, we begin to have moments in which we experience ourselves as time beings, not beings in time, time being. This is the remarkable result of spending time in silence. So you are a time being. In other words, you're spending that moment. Or Reverend Ike would say, don't use the word spend. Hey, good afternoon, Rosemary. Not to use the word spend, because then you go into spent and you feel like you don't have any more energy. Reverend Ike picked up on it back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. He said money is the currency. You got to circulate it. So what do you do when you're seated in meditation? In order to let silence be your friend, you got to breathe. You got to circulate breath through the body. You got to feel what that feels like for you, how you are circulating the breath, moving it around throughout your body. I remember in a lot of Tai Chi classes when I was in college or after college, they would say you have to lead the breath, not push it, lead it. There's a difference. When you're trying to push, you're thinking about, I got to move this breath in line with the chi. But what we have to understand is the chi is constantly moving through the body. It the best way to feel how to get with the chi is, many women have played what? Turning the rope, right? Skipping rope. And I've always admired the girls in my block when they would have two ropes going, right? And then they would be able to get in there and never get hit by the rope. Now you got people all over the world dancing in it, right? Sitting on the ground, scooting, break dancing in two of those. It kind of reminds you, though, of the cycle of the mind. This part of us that's being very analytical, and the other part that's becoming what? Intuitive. It's like your right hemisphere is doing something, your left hemisphere. And look, they're taking the ropes like this. Right side is doing something, left side is doing something. And somewhere in the middle, there's a timing. So it kind of fits this symbolically, a time being where you know the time when to step in to this space. As you step into the space, you start to claim the space. You start to become the space. So he goes on to say, and as we more fully experience what it's like to be a time being, silence more and more characterizes our countenance. Countenance is your aura, the energy that you're giving off. And so you're going deep inside in order to do it. This is what we try to tell you about meditation. I've taught guided meditation, and I have taught over the years silent meditation. Sometimes some people need guided. Why? To kind of busy the mind just enough where they go, okay, I'm tired of doing that. And they step away from that. And then they go in. There's a time when I can use music to what? Mask out sound outside the room. And then if you get into your flow of your meditation, eventually what happens is you don't even hear the music anymore. You're beyond the sound of music. When you hear the hum of lights, you get beyond the sound of the hum of lights and things going on outside yourself. He says in so many words, it's an activity. Silence is an activity. That's what he's saying in so many words. How do you get there, though? You got to be patient. You're not going to get there overnight. You're not going to get there when you want to get there because the body is conscious, it's organic, and it understands. It understands what you're striving to do. But at the same time, you got to get rid of things that are blocking you. So, what could the things be that could block us? Well, there could be poor thinking. I probably don't even really need the book, it's coming to mind. Poor thinking, he even mentions it in here. You can have poor thoughts. He said, be mindful of the mental junk food that we have. The mental junk food is the doubts that we have, the fears that we have, anxiety and worry that builds up. And sometimes we're worrying about things we have no business worrying about. Yeah, but sometimes you come to a point to be sitting in meditation, and what happens? You're worrying about the grocery bill, the light bill, the mortgage, or the rent. You're worrying about car insurance. You're worrying about if you got gas in your car. You're worrying about if you got food on the table. You're worrying about if you got clean clothes. You're worrying about a lot of stuff. Do you have time to exercise? Do you have time to cook a meal for yourself or for your family? There's a lot of stuff going on. There's even the positive things you're thinking about. It's like, okay, I know I'm going to go on vacation soon. Oh, I'm going to have a stay vacation. Oh, I'm just going to take a trip, out of town just to see something different. I'm going to be with some friends. But you're still thinking about what you want to do. You didn't get there yet, right? But you've been putting these ideas out. So, in order to let silence be your friend, and this is not just in meditation, this is in throughout your entire life. There's some moments where you just need to be quiet. People who study for exams, they lock themselves in their room. They don't want to hear anything. No music, no nothing. They don't want to hear the pitter patter of feet and children playing and fighting and carrying on. They don't want to even hear their partner say anything to them. Why? Because they're studying. But they have to study the mind. They have to figure out how to quiet the mind so they can get more focus. So here's a few things that help you with the acquiring silence. Turn off the TV. Don't watch anything. Turn off music. Don't listen to anything. If you have a radio on, turn it off. You don't have to shut your phone off. You just have to silence the phone. You'll see it if someone's trying to call you. You have to create the ambience. You have to create the space. Some people will burn candles. Some people, like myself, I've had candle lit. Sometimes I'll have an array of my crystals, especially my selenite out there. But I don't have to have them on top of me. I know where they're at. I got marble around here. I know where it's at. I got tourmaline. I know where they're at. These things are radiating energy all the time. But so am I. And I have to what? Walk through, float through to get to a point where I can be seated. So if I want silence, I have to what? Gain the consciousness of it. I have to know that I am consciously already in silence. But since I have a conscious thought about silence, then I have to have a conscious releasing of the word so I can be focused, but then I got to let go of the word focus. I can concentrate, but I got to let go of the word concentrate. He says, time being. I'm going to flip it around. It's time to be being. Put you in an action mode. It's time to be. Take the moment to be. If you're unable to be because the consciousness is not fully in place, then you know you are what? Becoming. Allow yourself to be so that you can come, so that you can allow yourself to arrive. So every time you sit in meditation, my friends, you got to pick a time, a moment where you can be consistent every time at a certain time. Why? The body that your spirit is in and around looks forward to meeting you. If it's looking forward to meet with you, and you're looking forward to meet yourself, your higher self, your true self, your more divine, your infinite self, then you make it possible. You don't have anything blocking your path. Now, even if you haven't had the experience, you got to realize you took steps toward it. Pat yourself on the back. Embrace yourself for making the effort to be patient, to making the effort to be quiet, for making the effort to not pay attention to all the thoughts swirling around up here. We have to go from here to here, into the heart, here to here. So you got to jump in to the sea of consciousness that you have that's in the heart. The ancient Egyptians, Kemetic people would say, this is nothing compared to this. The deity Anpu, known in the Greek world as Anubis, would have the scales, right? Because he's talking about you got to balance yourself. You got to balance between your dark side and your light side. You got to find a balance between the two. Then, when you find the balance, now we could weigh your heart against a feather. And if your heart is, this is where the phrase comes in. If your heart is light as a feather, it's no accident we say that. If your heart is light as a feather, you're free. You can free yourself. So silence is a good thing. Being alone and sitting quietly is a good thing. Why? Because you get to know yourself. When you know yourself, you get to step into the true self. You get to see all the fears, all the doubts, all the illusions melt away. And as they begin to melt away, they melt away in layers. Even your anger must melt. You cannot sabotage yourself. That also has to melt. What happens is as Akhenaten says, you miscreated the ego. You took it out of context. You're only supposed to use the ego as a magnifier of discernment. That's all. So as you begin to do that, and bring it back into the self, then it could go what? Be seated amongst the higher selves of you, the different layers that are expressing your divine nature. So now, when you can express your divine nature, you don't have to ask anybody any questions. You don't even have to doubt that you can sit in silence. You what? Look forward to it. You look forward to being in a silent motion, having silent moments. But you must listen. Mhm. Not only must you breathe, learn to breathe for yourself, you must listen. There's sometimes you're going to listen with discernment, and there's other times you're not even going to waste a degree of discernment on certain things that flow through you. But you're just going to be aware that they're flowing through you, but you're not going to attach yourself. This is why I remember one time I was at a Zen hall up in Monticello, New York. I was invited there to teach or do a guided meditation through for like 40 some odd people. And I happened to the roommate was the yoga teacher. And so I got to sit with the yoga teacher, and sitting with the yoga teacher, we realized we had a lot of things in common. And all I asked the students to do that Saturday night was to open their heart and allow themselves to experience the all, the presence of all. And when we opened ourselves up to do so, we noticed the deer came out of the mountains. But we noticed there was something else there, just not the the spirit being there. The Zen master who was in New York City was doing an out of body thing. He was checking in. I saw him numerous times walk through, just make an appearance and come out the other side. And what? All the deer would come out. And at one point, the deer were like looking, surrounding the meditation hall, looking in from the outside. And as we began to radiate the light from within for complete silence in ourselves, and part of it was a guided meditation that I was giving because I had to set the vibration. I utilized the guided meditation to set an intention that all of us would open ourselves up to, at that point, to the angel of grace. Open ourselves up to the angel of grace. And we had opened ourselves up so well, 40 people, that we experienced a miraculous event. We could see other beings walking around us in the Zen, in the big, it was like a big study hall that we were allowed to use for the yoga classes, but for that meditation that night. And we could feel the presence of the Zen master who was in New York City, traveling out of his body to the location where we were at. And we could see the deer cluster around because animals could see. They even had a couple of cats there, and the cats were like coming in. They weren't locked out. They were allowed to walk all over this Zen monastery. That's what it was basically, and wandered in where we were at. It is the power of allowing yourself to become, as he says, time being. In other words, you got a certain amount of time. And if we take the word time and turn it around, turn it backwards, time is emit, to let something out. So you're emitting thoughts, you're emitting feelings and levels of sensitivity. And what? You're stepping back into the throne of silence which is inside you, inside the field of the heart or the heart chakra. You sit there in the field of it. And in the field or the auric field of it, you begin to sense things, know things, feel things. And as you do so, because you are allowing yourself to have the experience, in other words, you're getting out of your own way. When you allow yourself to get out of your own way, then you are able to fend off things. So you got to, all of us have to realize that we can be at peace. So don't shortchange yourself. Sometimes, or many times, you could use your meditation. Because if you're going to let silence be your friend, you could use your meditation to what? Deprogram yourself of old ways of thinking and feeling. Deprogram yourself of how you used to react instead of act responsibly. You could what? Cut those things away from yourself and then allow the new self, the most infinite self, to come through. And because you are allowing this new self to take residence, you can communicate with anything in the body. Yes, we all have to do it. We all have to get out of our own way. We're just letting that physical ego side step aside. We're not going to kill it. We don't need to kill the ego. The ego is a part of you. You don't want to kill yourself. You just want to open up yourself. So then you step more in to your true self. He says you're a time being. So you a time being because you are in action in the moment, opening the door up, emitting energy, emitting rays of light, unconditional love, and surrendering to your divinity. Eventually, at some point, you will relax in to your higher self. You'll be embraced by your higher self and all of the energy beings that work through you. Ancestors, immediate ancestors, ancestral guides, spirits of the land, of the mountains, of the elemental spirits of land, stone, mountain, water, fire, light, ether, and so on and so forth in gems. You will unite and have this opportunity to what? Embrace each other's energy, communicate with each other. There's a lot of communication that goes on when you're seated in meditation quietly. I call it a stepping back and a stepping down. If you remember the feeling, what it's like to be on an escalator. I used to have a technique, a meditation, uh, but it was called RCV, and all it meant was relaxation, concentration, visualization. Relaxation, concentration, visualization. Because you're going to have to be able to see eventually, right? You have the consciousness to see, you have the inner eyes to see, you have the inner being to what? To concentrate, to get focused, to be centralized within. And then you have the consciousness to be able to relax into it. So if you remember what it's like to be on an escalator going down, and eventually that feeling of going down is relaxing, letting go, letting the shoulders drop down. While the shoulders drop down, sitting up into it, letting the spine be natural to itself. And then eventually, over a period of moments, You arrive at the door, core silence. You are inviting yourself into the space. As you invite yourself into the space, you no longer worry how you got there. Just know that you have the consciousness and the intent to arrive at the door of silence. And now silence becomes your friend. Silence teaches you how to laser like your sight and your feeling and your levels of sensitivity, laser like in your sense of touch and taste and hearing and smelling. You're going to learn how to let silence be your friend. Because when you can get really quiet, then you can pick up on the subtleties of everything around yourself. You can sense activity around yourself. You can sense when something should not be in your environment or you should not be in the environment of something. All of that takes place when you can quiet the mind. Just pay attention to the breathing and go with the flow, meaning tune into the breath and be the breath within and outside of your body. There's a gentle swaying that you might feel. You might feel like you're going like this or like that. And some people go like that. And other people feel an itching. They feel tingling going on. But even that is an expression of the inner part of you. Eventually, you got to get beyond that. You don't have to worry about going outside the cell because you'll be parked on the inside. You'll be watching, observing, perceiving all things infinite, all things divine. You will learn that silence will always be your friend. Let's take a little exercise together. Inhale through the nose fully. Exhale through the mouth. Inhale through the nose. Exhale through the mouth. One more time on your own. Let it out. So you just want to go into that space. Feel the oneness that you are truly about. You want to sit into it comfortably, allowing yourself to be that which you seek. Just remember, acquire the consciousness of silence. Then you'll be emitting energy from the deepest part of you. That's the core. That's actually another door that opens you to another chamber of light, another chamber of grace, another chamber of compassion, gratitude, awareness, remembrance, understanding, self-love. You feel the total oneness that's inside as well as outside. Well, tomorrow's Friday. Swanda comes on at 12 p.m. Monday, we have from the UK at 9 a.m. Mountain Standard Time on Mondays is Audrey Wilson from the UK, and she's talking about everything that's connected to you being a better medium or you stepping into the field of mediumship. Every Tuesday at 12 p.m., we have Donna of Dominion Tarot, and she is doing what she does best. And then I come back every Thursday at 1 p.m. with another live episode of Wisdom Keys with myself, Brother Francis. I want to thank you for tuning in today. I hope this lesson helps you out. Remember, let silence be your friend. My grace is your grace. Until next time, remember that divine grace is a blessing as we are alive and well in the age of remembrance. This is Wisdom Keys with Brother Francis. I'll be back next Thursday, and somewhere along the line in here, you'll see what the new topic will be. Take care of yourself. Be well. Thank you so much, and have a great day. And thank you for listening and tuning in today.